we all keeping, everyone? We all good, yeah? We all good? Is everyone having a good time? Is anyone on coke? Good to see you, good to see you. I went up being like, don't encourage him. The first thing I did was like, let's point and make him talk. That's basically how I'm going to be tonight. What's the story? How we all keep it? Just give me a cheer if you're from Dublin. Nice one. Give me a cheer if you're from the north side. Right, I'm from Crumlin. Fuck! Alright, I'm from Crumlin like Dale, yeah? Now I'm a few years older than them. I remember when it was fun, you know? Like, I remember when I was growing up, there was a story down the road from me, and people talked about how violent it was. And the biggest story that there was when I was a kid, there was this lad that was selling drugs, and the other lads didn't like that. So what they did was they pulled up in a car, and they pulled his jocks down, and they sprayed his bollocks with links and lit it on fire. I know, right? Now that sounds mad. That sounds mad. But if you tell that to anyone from any other country, especially America, they'll be like, oh, you could shoot him. I don't know. That kind of sounds very German, very Berlin to me. It's like you're selling drugs to my area, fireballs. You know, it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing. Well, I went from Crumlin. Crumlin's only really known for two things. You know, it's known for a shopping centre and Conor McGregor. And we knocked the shopping centre down last month, so our stock is low. In fairness, the shopping centre did consent to being knocked down, so there is a bit of a difference, you know. But it's weird, like there's a big drug problem in Crumlin. It's mostly me, I will say. It's rough, like drugs are bad for you know. Drugs are bad, they're bad for your brain, they're bad for your nose. With a nose as big as mine, you've got some room to play with, you know. But I wouldn't recommend them to a friend. I'd sell them. But I'm a bad person, that's what we do. Like, my friends were drug dealers, you know. I wasn't, I was the poshest boy in Crumlin. I did acting and speech and drama. I'm an acting teacher now, and my mates are fucking drug dealers in prison. My dad's from the inner city. I don't even tell him what I do, you know? Like, my dad asked me what I work as, I'm like, I sell me arse, lads, you know? It's easier. My dad's like, there's a bit of graft in that, son. As long as you're not fucking rhyming about it, you know? But then he turns to me and he's like, why are you so broke all the time? Do you know how bad it is to tell your dad you're a shit ride instead of telling the truth? That's fucking rough. I have to turn to my dad and be like, I'm all whole and no heart, Eddie, you know? My head's not in the game. For the right price it could be, but that's a different story. Onlydans.com, that's the way it works. But it's weird, a lot of my mates wound up in prison because they were drug dealers, but they wore the drug dealer's uniform, and you don't do that. You don't wear the uniform. You go on D.E, type in drug dealer. That's the perks of the job. Choose your own hours. Company car. Fucking no uniform required, but every one of them, turkey teeth, an Audi A5, and a baby with a name that shouldn't be allowed by the government. Every time. There's a mother sitting in the comb going, this is our daughter, Bacardi Revolut. Came out weighing 5 pounds and 8 ounces. That's what our dad was caught with, 5 pounds and 8 ounces. He didn't do it, he put it there. But I teach these posh kids acting and speech and drama, you know, and like they look down on me because there's language barriers in life. I've dealt with it in all ways, in class, in race, in everything. And in class, like, I'm the poshest boy in Crumlin. When I teach these acting kids, I'm a scumbag, you know, because all the parents are posh. And they turn to me, like I teach these triplets. Now I'm going to change their name for GDPR reasons. I'm not going to do as well in fucking prison as my mates, you know. Can you imagine I'm standing there, like, what are you in for? But it's like, selling coke, the other lad, stop the cunts, and I'm there. I do poems sometimes, but I talked about it, I'm sorry. So these triplets run down the stairs to their mom, and the mother turns around and she goes, it's just so great what you're doing with Horatio, and Imogen, and chlamydia. It's wonderful, especially considering your situation. I'm like, my situation, what are you talking about? You know? And she goes, well, I heard you were from Crumlin. She fucking whispered it, you know? Like it was a disease. Like I had a week to, like the idea of me being an acting teacher from Crumlin was the same as strapping a poem to a Labrador and just rushing it through the class hoping the kids could read on time, you know? And like I'm a vindictive person, I have vengeance in my heart, but what am I going to do? Hit the kids? Like... No, I'm not going to do that. So what I do is I teach them some Crumlin lingo, you know? So Horatio runs down the stairs, he goes, gee bro, have a good... There's no streets in Horatio, he's too far gone, you know? But Imogen runs down the stairs, she goes, yo brother, see you next week, yeah? The man's ears prick up like a pit bull on a fucking hunt, you know? Chlamydia grabs a kid at the vending machine and goes, give us £2 till next week, brother, I'm good for it. Yeah, the man's like, what the fuck, I've raised the wrong man here. Because it's mad, because these parents pay for private school and they think that'll make the kids smart. No. It doesn't work. Like the dad's sitting there going, our Horatio, he's going to be the next president of Ireland. He's going to keep this country afloat, I tell you. There stands Horatio. Barely keeping his head afloat in the situation. Like Horatio has a housing crisis in his own box of Lego, you know? And it does happen when you eat half the bricks, to be fair to Horatio, but the blue ones are tasty, you know, what can you do? Like I'd be teaching Horatio poems. I'm like, what poem are you going to do this week, Horatio? He's like, slugs. I'm like, you've been doing that one for a couple of years now, Horatio. What are you, slugs? I'm like, oh, fair enough, brother, go ahead. And he stands there. Slugs, slugs, crawl through grass. Watching all the Beatles as they... He's 19, by the way. But they pay by the term. Fucking great job, Horatio, you know? But that's the thing, I deal with that language barrier in terms of class. I've dealt with it in all walks of life. I used to work security. I know you're thinking, how? Basically, when I went for the job interview, they were like, what would you do if you saw someone doing drugs? And I went, I'd stop looking in the mirror, lads. You know? I was in the next day, but I used to work in a hospital, right? And I went in, and I was with this lad called Pavel. Now, Pavel was 6'6", 36 years old, Romanian, and built as fucking wide. Like, back in the day, people were like, Romanians are coming in and taking our jobs. Pavel would have turned around and went, what the fuck are you going to do? You know, Pavel didn't give a shit. And I walked in, I go, all right, Pavel, I'm new here. Well, nice to meet you. And he said, you sit here. It's the only thing he said for a 13-hour shift. And I fucking sat there, you know. Weeks went by, we didn't say a word to each other, but one day I made Pavel laugh, and Pavel went, ha 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 ha, big pussy. The fuck, you know? But I looked at Pavel and I went, I was 19, I go, ha 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 ha, yeah. And now that's my name. So for the next few months, every day I walk in, he goes, big pussy, ha ha, and I go, ha ha, Pavel, and then one day this guy Brendan came in, right? Brendan worked the night shifts. We didn't like Brendan. Brendan left crumbs on the desk. Brendan was a registered sex offender. I know, crumbs are the worst. They get everywhere. It's terrible. But Brendan comes in to pick up his keys, and when he leaves, Pavel turns to me and goes, Brendan is no pussy, but you, big pussy. And now I'm scared, you know? So I turn and I'm like, Pavel, what's the story with this? You know, why are you calling me big pussy? Now, Pavel learned his English watching The Sopranos. Some of you have seen the show. So Tony Soprano's best friend is Big Pussy Bombancero. So I made Pavel laugh and he decided I'm his best friend. Ah, that's great. But now I have to explain to Pavel, in Ireland, pussy is something you want. It's not something you want to be called. That's a rough thing to do, you know? And I see the light leave Pavel's eyes, the colour drain from his face as he looks at me and goes, I've been calling the boss pussy for 2 fucking years. It wasn't good, you know? And there's one more language barrier that I came across recently, and any men in the room, you'll understand it. A language barrier we may never break. It's the language of love, lads. The language of love, it's rough. I was on a date there where I see some pats on the shoulders. I know a middle finger going up really hard. Lad, you're quicker learning Mandarin, believe me, it's fucking rough, you know? I I was on a date a few weeks ago, and I was at my first point with her, and she turns and she goes, "So what are you into?" And I was like, the fucking Guinness here. You know what I mean? She goes, "No, what's your kinks?" With a hard K? With a hard K, what's your kinks? And I'm like, like, fucking, you know, and you go that way. What about you? You know? And in this moment I learned I'm vanilla. I'm not even vanilla, I'm fucking milk. You know what I mean? I'm not even frozen. I'm just a puddle on the ground. Because this girl turns to me and she goes, "Because I've got a breeding kink." Very fucking vanilla crowd here. There's usually one goth girl in the corner that goes, "Oh." Now you're laughing, I spot you, there we go. There we go, we'll talk later. Anyway. But I told her, I'm like, "Breeding kink, is that like choking and all that?" And she goes, "No, you fucking idiot. You're like, what are you, a virgin? How boring are you in bed?" I realised I had a humiliation kink in that moment, but that's a different story, that's another time. So she goes, "No, a breeding kink is basically, I like the idea that you're going to get me pregnant." And I went, fuck off. As you do, you know. But then I started thinking, like, surely the whole idea of a kink is that's meant to be something that's out of the ordinary for sex. You know, there's sex and then there's a kink. And like, in my opinion, the whole baby part is what they invented sex for, as far as I'm concerned. You know, I didn't listen in school. But like, that's like me being on a date and she's going like, "You like breakfast, what's your kink? I'm kind of into cornflakes at the moment," you know. The problem is I said that. And she didn't like that. And she got defensive and she goes, "I'm also into knife play." Knife play? I'm from Crumlin, with knives it's all business, you know what I mean? But she says, "I'm into knife play," and she goes, "What's your opinion on that?" And I said, fucking, what are we going to call the kids? Guys, I'm Dan O'Farrell, thank you very much. Dan O'Farrell, everybody.